Well, hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to a new program here on soulandjazz.com that we're going to call A Chat with the Cats. And this is the very first program in that series, our inaugural program. And I'm very, very delighted. Oh, by the way, my name is Brad Stone. And I'm very, very delighted to have this artist as our inaugural interview on this program. I'm really calling it a chat more than an interview. It's going to be a very, a casual chat with the artists. And so today we have a composer, pianist, arranger, band leader, man of many talents, Mike Holober, an artist who I have admired for many, many years and have played on the air. And those of you who are familiar with my program, The Creative Source, will have heard Mike Holober in the past on many episodes, actually. He's got a few albums out. He has a couple of albums out with his quintet. And then, Mike, if I am correct, the brand new album that you have with your Gotham Jazz Orchestra is your fourth in that series. Am I right?
That is correct. This is the fourth one, although the last two have been double albums, but it's the fourth.
Good, good. Well, anyway, welcome to the program, Mike. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you, Brad. So nice to be here. Thanks for the chat, and thanks for the time, and yeah, it's my pleasure.
So I'm going to ask you, first of all, we're definitely going to focus in on your new album because I just think it's, I've enjoyed all of your work. Every album you've put out, I think this is your best one yet, and really want to focus in on the new one. But tell us a little bit about your musical background, your upbringing as a musician. Give us a little brief bio.
Okay. Well, I started taking classical piano lessons when I was 6.5. I remember my teacher was Galina Savransky on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, and through high school I was mostly thinking I would be a classical pianist. I did a lot of accompanying. My sight reading got pretty sharp. And the same continued into college as an accompanist. And I had summer work as a rehearsal pianist for opera companies. But then I developed an interest in jazz and I started writing. And by the time I finished my master's degree in classical piano, I knew I was changing over to the jazz world. I'd already been writing. I played a little saxophone and flute. I understood the language, and then I had a lot of opportunities to write, and then it was that was it from there. Although I have to say, the classical background, I wouldn't change anything. The reading skills, my mentor, who was a fantastic conductor, what I learned about rehearsal technique and timing, being expeditious with running a rehearsal well, I think that all those things have helped me do what I do today.
Well, I think I first became familiar with you as an artist with your quintet going back. I remember Brian Blade was in the group, right?
Yeah, Brian and Scott Colley, Tim Reese, and Wolfgang Muschspiel were the first record, and then same band, only with John Patitucci on bass on the second record.
Well, great players all, of course. And but then your Gotham Jazz Orchestra, kind of want to focus today on that. As we had talked about before, you have your fourth album out with your Gotham Jazz Orchestra. Your previous album, Hiding Out, was Grammy nominated for Best Large Jazz Ensemble, which was well deserved, and it's nice to get that kind of recognition. And I was mentioning before we started recording that I really think your new album, I'm going to put it up here so that everybody can see it. So This Rock We're On, Imaginary Letters, Mike Holober and the Gotham Jazz Orchestra. And in CD format, it is a double CD. And I just love One of my really real loves in, over the last few years, it's sort of the reemergence of jazz orchestras, big bands, large ensembles, but modern stuff. And yours fits right in there. And I just think that you're amongst the very best composers for this kind of music. And you were talking about your classical background, and it really comes through on this album because it's kind of a fusion between jazz and classical, isn't it?
Yeah. What I did here was, well, first of all, thank you for saying that it's my best work. I feel good about it. I did a lot of personal studying and listening and reading related to the subject matter that inspired the work. A lot of score study, really trying to just move forward from where I had been on my previous, let's say, bout of writing. And the idea of this piece of the work, this rock we're on, Imaginary Letters, is there are six protagonists that whose lives are inspired by the outdoor world. Ansel Adams, Rachel Carson, Wendell Berry, Terry Tempest Williams, Robin Wall Kimmerer, Sigurd Olson, the writers, photographers, wilderness advocates. And the idea was to imagine as a chamber piece a letter to or from each of these protagonists, and then to follow that letter with a jazz orchestra piece that reflected on either their work or the nature or the subject of the imaginary letter.
So I think we should mention now that the listeners and viewers of this program first heard as an intro piece, a piece from your album, this new album, and that was Dirt Lover's Almanac, with John Patitucci featured on bass as a special guest artist, and also the wonderful Charles Pillow on alto. So
He's so great, Charles. And
yeah,
yeah, he also has a bass flute solo later on the record, and to me, it's one of the magical moments. Charles is great. Yeah,
so
Dirt Lover's Almanac is the Wallace Berry piece, and he's a writer, an essayist. Deals with like sociology, but he's a farmer, and so he writes about society, but he's also leads an agrarian life, and so I tried to make something earthy in terms of like the nature of this piece, like hence the tempo and the harmonic language.
it's a great piece, and I love the sophisticated harmony too.
Thank you.
So
Also, the use of the cello in there too, that this is one of the big band pieces, the jazz orchestra pieces that really integrates cello, which is prominent in all the chamber works, but here it's integrated into jazz orchestra also.
I'm glad you mentioned the cellist because the cello part, because it's really a prominent part of this piece. And maybe you could say a word about your cellist.
Oh yeah, sure. Jody Redditch Ferber, she just did an incredible job getting inside of this music and playing it so beautifully. And there is a lot of work for her to do. There's two long cello soliloquies. There's the six chamber pieces that she plays on all of them. Then she's on half the big band work. A lot of it is exposed. Some of it is fairly virtuosic. And I just, I really hear cello as being incredibly evocative about Earth and just really a gorgeous voice in terms of the planet or people caring about each other. It's just Egberto Gismonti is someone too I really admire who uses cello in a way that I think is very much just so expressive. And you know, people realize it's such a rhythmic instrument also.
Well, it's very effective and wonderful playing by her. Uh, so the Gotham Jazz Orchestra, which is your jazz orchestra, your large ensemble, how did you go about putting that together? I mean, that must have been quite a labor of love, huh?
Yeah, it still is a labor of love. You know, it was over 20 years ago, and I was working as a pianist on the New York scene, occasionally contributing some jazz orchestra music, and people are like, "You should do your own thing, do a recording." And so I asked my friends, almost all of whom are still like mostly the population of the band, and it was just, in New York, it's like once you have 6 or 7 or 8 pieces together, technically you have a band. And then once people started hearing the music, I got asked to write more, and then this is a project-oriented band. And the music that I've written for the Gotham Jazz Orchestra is strictly music that I've written for myself. But it's also led me and enabled me to work with the German radio orchestras in Frankfurt and Cologne, and I've written a lot of music and conducted both of those a lot, and that's also a big part of my jazz orchestra existence. But the Gotham Jazz Orchestra is the one that's my personal voice as a jazz orchestra writer.
Yeah, I was going to mention the work you did with the WDR big band. That must have been a great experience.
I was there in September. I mean, they're really great to work with, as is the HR band in Frankfurt. I'm actually going to Frankfurt in November, and then next July of 2025, I'm writing a project for the WDR band that will feature Chris Potter, which of course I'm very excited about.
Well, we'll talk. I'll have you talk a little bit more about Chris in a moment here when I have you introduce the outro piece for our program today. So you can talk a little bit about the great Chris Potter, and I'm going to ask you just to try to kind of get to know you a little bit better as a person, something non-musical. So. Maybe you could tell us something about, I don't know, a current book you're reading that you may be enjoying, or a movie you've seen recently, or you can always talk about your favorite food, because I'm a real foodie. So,
Yeah. I find myself recently diving back into some of the reading I did to prepare for this project, like Terry Tempest Williams books. That to me are very evocative about the environment, and they contain a lot of like Native American lore. And I find that if I'm in bed and reading at night, I try not to like doom scroll news, and that takes me the farthest away from it. Same with the Sigurd Olsen, who's one of my protagonists. That he takes me to a place that is kind of restorative. Favorite food, I mean, I will say that food and occasional glass of wine, that kind of thing, that is really an important thing to make sure that I spend the time with my wife and my friends, and that we don't rush through those moments. We did rent Field of Dreams last week. I had never seen it in its entirety before. So, I have a lot of catching up to do, but I love a great movie, or my wife is an art historian. And I will say that for me, for music, checking out another art intensely is really motivational. I think it helps me more than going to hear a performance, which might be somewhat motivational. But if I go to a gallery or see a great art film, I think, wow, fearless, creative. And I think I'm going to try and be more fearless and creative.
That's neat to hear. And first of all, you were talking about activities, like reading, that were restorative, and I think we could all use some more of that these days, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Field of Dreams, I have to say, one of my personal all-time favorite movies. It really, really resonates with me. I'm somebody I lost my father at a very early age, and that movie just affected me profoundly. So,
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, wonderful. Mike, what I'm going to have you do is, first of all, I want to say, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really honored to have you as my inaugural musician artist for this interview program, this chat. You're the first cat.
I'm honored.
So really, really fantastic. I want to thank Ann Braithwaite for connecting us and suggesting that I do an interview with you, and the timing was right. So really wonderful to have you, and I hope we get to share a meal someday with a glass of wine, and that would be really lovely to do that in person. And so thank you for being here. I want to have you talk about the final piece that we're going to hear at the end of this chat, and that is from your new album. Once again, it's Mike Holober and the Gotham Jazz Orchestra. This rock we're on, Imaginary Letters. We're going to hear Tower Pulse, and this features as guests a couple of my very favorite artists, so I'm going to let you introduce it.
Okay, yeah, there is a good story that goes with this piece. I'll start with the players. It was written I wrote a couple of things on this project for Chris Potter, and so he's prominently featured on this, and also the guitarist Nir Felder, who played on the entire project. And one of my protagonists, Terry Tempest Williams, who's a writer, she lives in Utah, and we had breakfast right before the pandemic and to talk about what I was working on and my idea. And she played for me a recording that geologists and audiologists had done of this sandstone tower called Castleton Tower near where she lives. And she put the headphones on me at breakfast, and you could hear this thrumming, and the article explained how the tower's sound would be influenced by the weather, or if there was a train passing 30 miles away, or construction or something like that, that it was really affected by the environment. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna write a piece called Tower Pulse. It was preceded by the chamber piece is called Refuge. And it's an imaginary letter from the tower to Terry saying, please write on my behalf. It's like a conservation request from the tower to Terry. So musically, the concept here is I am a big fan of John Adams, who some say is a minimalist writer, less minimalist than Steve Reich, and but he's my favorite of the minimalists, I guess it's fair to say, and so I was influenced by that. And also, I was in rock bands in high school, and the idea of really electric guitar and a rock beat, and I play Fender Rhodes on this, and so it kind of rocks out. There's a little heroic Americana vibe. Extended form, like all of my piece. It's not like a form where you do the head and you repeat and you play solos. This is a long form piece that goes through 3 different sections, really, and then it involves cello, using it as a rhythmic instrument, and it also has percussion on it, mostly vibraphone, but also some good percussive metal kinds of sounds. So that's Tower Pulse.
Well, good. Well, we're going to end our chat here. Stick with me, Mike. I'm going to stop the recording for this chat, but the listeners are going to, and viewers are going to be able to hear Tower Pulse from the new album. And once again, Mike, I want to thank you, so much for spending some time with us. It's been a great chat.
Thank you, Brad. It's really my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for advocating for the record. Appreciate it.
I hope everyone goes out and checks it out, and if you can afford to do so, buy a copy, because it's so important to the artists these days. So please consider doing that.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
www.soulandjazz.com.